Hello everyone, today is going to be a pretty interesting video. I left it up to a poll to decide what today's video is going to be. And y'all seem to favor the idea of going into depth about some of my poses and the little things I have hidden on my shelf. So I'm going to be doing that, as well as maybe combining some of the add-ons that I've included too, because those do fall under this category. So I guess I'm killing two birds with one stone here? I don't know. Well, anyways, let's get into the video. Starting off with part one, the most obvious thing you could see here is my custom creation of Danny. Of course, Danny is not there for the majority of part one, but I felt like it was great to include him. I did find a pretty accurate sculpt somewhere in my house, so I repainted the dog, and it looked just like he did in the manga and animation. So I'm pretty proud of that. I also have back here my two standard release, Jonathan and Dio, doing a pose from a art piece from Araki. You know this art piece, it came around I think when they were making part 6, so that's why it looks different. I was a big fan of the piece and I think it looks really cool, so I felt like it made sense just to reference it right here. The next little Easter egg comes from my part 2 display, which, as you could tell, there ain't really many figures. Same with my part 1 display over here. So this one will be pretty quick. If you take a look just below my Joseph figure, you'll notice a bottle of Coca-Cola. This, of course, is a reference to when he used it in the first episode of part 2. My part 3 section is pretty cut and dry. There's really nothing hiding here besides this. This plate next to Dio is exclusive to one of the world variants and literally translates to him saying Muda a bunch of times. I also made these sand effects for my Iggy. And just below Polnareff is the Anubis sword. Now my part 4 collection is pretty big and there is a bit to unpack here. First off, I'd like to show off this little pose I have for Rohan, at least this pink version. I have him holding up his manuscript and Heaven's Door coming out of it, reaching out towards, well, me. Since I'm pretty short, this is where my head level is. I love nothing better than showing how stands work within their poses. So that means I used Gyro's little effect piece for the hand, since apparently he didn't get one. And of course I had to reference my favorite arc in JoJo, which is probably going to be Highway Star. I really love this fight, and I really wanted to show him off with a motorcycle and Rohan just mean mugging Yuya. And if you take a look to the right of Yoshikage Kira, you can see the Mona Lisa, his childhood crush. Part 5 takes up the most shelf room, I think, here, except for my Steel Ball Run area due to the horses, but I also have the most figures here. And first off the bat, I'd like to show off this Fugo pose I have him in. If you are familiar with the light novels, this is his pose from the cover of Purple Haze Feedback. This is personally my favorite light novel from the series, and I'm a big fan of it and how it concludes part 5. I also love putting them with their best friends, so here's him with Narancia, and behind Narancia is La Squadra. Now I've been trying to find a way to sneak my little Formaggio figure in there, the one that came with the Narancia figure, so if anybody has any suggestions, please send them in the comments. Another cool moment here is Trish looking at her stand for the first time. I really thought this was a fun thing to add in because she awakens it within the anime. And just like every other JoJo part I have on display, it follows the chronological story arc of part 5, where Giorno becomes the boss. And he's on a little chair. And my favorite part of this shelf in general is the fact that I have Polnareff and JoJo reunited in between their parts, as well as my custom Dio and Giorno being next to each other. Now in my very, very colorful looking part 6 display, I have a couple little trinkets at the bottom of the shelf here. I have a couple clouds to show off, kind of weather reports abilities, as well as a miniature snail and a blood spike I made out of clay. This of course happens within the heavy weather arc. And I also managed to snag this Maiden Heaven keychain, which I took the chain off and put next to Poochie to kind of stand in place before they release the figure. Now I'm getting into some manga spoiler territory, so if you haven't read part 7 or 8, please be advised. Anyways, I have a couple cool things I want to show off within my part 7 collection. This first one, of course, is Gyro standing on a chair. This is a reference to chapter 34 of Steel Ball Run. This is part 2 of True Man's World, and lo and behold, right next to him is Ringo Road again. As you can see here, Ringo is sandwiched between two gyros. This is mainly because of the importance that Ringo had to Gyro's development as a character. And if you look just below Gyro, you can see his teddy bear. This has been referenced a couple times in the manga. I just think it's one of the little funnier things that I added in. And behind my President Valentine is a version of him with a tank top on. This version, of course, appeared at the end of Steel Ball Run. I just thought it was interesting because it's a unique outfit for Valentine in the final battle. Both also stand on top of an American flag. And lastly, for this part of the shelf, I have the entire display here being sandwiched by the high voltage arc. This is Johnny Joestar attempting to fire his nail bullets at Diego with the world. It's an amazing ending for part 7, and it is quite a twist. And now with my very small JoJolion display, featuring some of my customs here, I created a Yatsuyu Yagiyama statue. I forget what I used, but it's mostly clay and paint. It was pretty simple, but I just think it's pretty funny. He's just kind of chilling there. And lastly, I have Toru and Wonder of You creating my favorite volume cover, this of course being volume 26 of JoJolion. And lastly, I just want to go over a few of the gimmicks that are pretty apparent in this display. One thing I love doing is displaying the main antagonist above the JoJo to a degree. I just think it's really cool because it gives them a bit of a upper hand or something like that, and sliding some of the other antagonists in there with them, I think it looks really cool. It gives them a sense of power, and it also shows a bit of conflict as well. The other thing that I brought up earlier is the fact that I love to do the display in chronological order, showing the start of the part to the end of the part. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all around. Peace.